So every successful entrepreneur I follow lives and dies by reading. Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. But let's be honest, most of us buy books, but we never ever finish them because we're just too busy running our businesses, putting out fires, and by the time we actually have free time, our brain is just fried. But here's the secret, it's not about willpower or carving out more time. It's about tricking your brain with a few psychological tricks and hacks to make reading a lot easier. So in this video, I'm sharing 3 lazy hacks that will help busy entrepreneurs read more, absorb more, and stay ahead of competition without working harder. Okay, so one of the questions that I always have in my mind is, how do I make reading more effortless even when I'm busy? It's not about, finding more time, or it's not about having more willpower. It's about identifying small tweaks that makes your brain, choose reading automatically. So let's start with the first one. So when I ran my business, I would buy a shitload of books. I would buy strategy, marketing, leadership, you name it, I brought it. I just love the feeling of just opening an Amazon parcel and then there's this shiny new book and I'm like, wow. Just the smell as well, it's just like crazy. So the reason why I brought all them books is because I wanted to transform my life, I wanted to transform my business, but after a long day of being out and about, doing loads of things, I just come back and they just start to collect more and more dust as time goes on. And I've kept on saying the same things, I'll read tomorrow when I have more energy. Tomorrow just never comes. It just never comes. I was always tired. I was always just busy. And because I wanted some sort of dopamine, I'd end up just scrolling on my phone. And it wasn't because I didn't want to read. It was because the act of reading was just such a mountain climb. I just generally couldn't be bothered. So in the act of trying to get rid of this laziness, I tried something ridiculously simple. So I ended up just putting books everywhere. I literally just scattered them throughout the whole house, my bedside, my kitchen, my office. Even I used to hide them in random cupboards. Like, I was always just scattering books everywhere. And obviously I wasn't planning on reading, but naturally, because the books were everywhere, I just naturally read more. I kind of gave myself no excuses. There was always a book within arm's reach, like 24/7. And what I've noticed is your brain always chooses the easiest option. If your phone is closest to you, you'll end up picking that up and scrolling. If your book is closer to you, you'll end up picking it up and reading. Like, it's all about reducing the friction. And I think the best way to do that is to change your environment. That will inevitably change your habits. And I think putting books just fucking everywhere, even in the toilet, like everywhere, just put books everywhere and you'll eventually just read more books. So that small tweak changed how often I read, but having books around just wasn't enough. I still needed to find a way to actually look forward to reading, because even after a long, exhausting day, there's a trick to make your brain crave it without forcing it that I realized. So on some days when I came back from work, I'd sit down and I'd think, right, tonight I'm going to read. I'm going to read tonight. I'm definitely going to do it. 100% I'm going to do it. I'd open a book and my mind would just start wandering immediately. Like, I wouldn't even get the first word and my brain's already, thinking about tomorrow's, tasks, thinking about emails, thinking about marketing strategies, and I couldn't focus, I couldn't lock in, and I felt reading eventually felt like a little bit of a chore on my to-do list. Like, I didn't want to do it. I was just like reluctantly doing the thing that, previously, I had a lot of joy doing, but now it kind of felt like a tick on the to-do list. And I feel like when something feels like work after a long day of running a business, you will just avoid it. Like, your brain just wants easy dopamine. You want to watch Netflix, you want to go on your phone. For me, it was just going on my PS5, just absolutely chilling. I had to do something, I had to flip the script. So eventually what I did was I made reading the gateway to things I actually wanted. So before I'd watch my favorite show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or picking up my PS5 and playing FIFA or UFC or whatever, I had to read first. So I was kind of like actively programming my mind and my brain to say, if I want a reward, I have to read first. So reading became this natural thing that I didn't have to think about, and it didn't become a chore anymore. I don't know, it's so weird. It just became a little bit of a ritual or a routine almost. And sometimes I'd even get like double dopamine. I'd learn something through the book and I'd be like, this is fucking genius. And then I'd do that for half an hour, I'd read for half an hour, and then I'd go on my PS5 or watch Only Sunny, and I'd enjoy that reward as well. So I'm getting two bits of dopamine in my day. It's beneficial because it's good to relax sometimes when you're obviously an entrepreneur and you're doing loads of different difficult things, and you have to have that downtime. You have to be able to just relax. But it's also good to squeeze in them half an hour chunks of improving your knowledge, gaining concepts and ideas, I feel like that situation is a win-win. So even with that hack, there was still one thing holding me back. You know, I'd look at the book and sometimes I just think there's hundreds of pages. Do you know when you just look at something and you just think, this is going to be long? Like getting through this book or going through this hike or doing something is just going to be long. And I think it's that mental block that sometimes stopped me from starting. So I came up with a ridiculously simple rule to, you know, remove the pressure. And I feel like it was the last piece of the puzzle that made reading effortless. I think after reading for 10 years, I've realized the hardest part of reading isn't reading. I think it's starting. So usually I'd have that little voice in my head saying, I don't want to do 30 minutes right now. I want to do something else. And I end up talking myself out of, you know, reading or even opening the book. So like that procrastination just hits in and it was just too much to handle sometimes. I created a bit of an easy rule as well. I did nick this off someone, but I'm going to label it. I'm going to take it. So the easiest rule possible is to just read 2 books. Like anyone can read 2 pages. You know, it doesn't even take 5 minutes. You know, 99% of the time anyway, you start and you just keep going. So tell yourself just to read 2 pages and, you know, sometimes you'd even end up reading 20 pages, 30 pages, 40 pages. You know, I think it lowers the bar and removes the pressure. And it's called the lazy, oh dear, what's it called? I forgot my label. The lazy 2-page rule. It's good, isn't it? Original. So for me, just saying to myself, I'm only going to read for 2 pages, you know, reading started to become effortless and finishing became very, very easy as well. So once you start reading consistently, your brain naturally soaks up more and more information. But if you feel like nothing sticks, then you're probably making 1 to 3 subtle mistakes that are destroying your retention. So in this video here, I'll show you exactly how to fix them. So whenever you read, it actually sticks in your head. Hopefully I'll see you in there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next one. Peace.